Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. It's Tuesday, June 11th. I'm Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield following the Beaver State Fling. It's back on the Elite Series. The longtime national tour event got booted. Then there was COVID. Then there was silver. But it's now been returned to its rightful home on the Elite Series. A full-fledged GGPT event. And Josh, come from behind victories for both Gannon Buhr and an amazing couple of clutch shots from Holyn Handley, who beats Owen Scoggins in a playoff. And it was quite the drama this weekend as we had, how many MPO guys were in the conversation midway through the final round?
Oh, yeah.
It was still like 6 or 7 guys.
Yes.
And ultimately, Josh, Gannon just outlasted everybody, and we watched other people just fall away.
It is, and I think that's such a good way to put it too, because listen, his 8 under round was a good round. It is a final round rating of 1054, which is not bad. But I think what's critical here is that, Gannon has no bogeys in the final round. And there were guys who shot hotter than that. Chandler Fry shot a 10 down. Eagle McMahon shot a 9 down. I think there were a couple more 9 downs a little further down the leaderboard. But those are your 2 in the top 15 who both shot better than Gannon did. Ezra, on hole 18, misses a putt that would have brought him to 8 down. Ricky missed a couple putts that would have brought him to 8 or 9 down. Gavin Rathbun has a bogey on 17 that really takes him out of question. So there's just all the other players around him made mistakes some point in the round that, even if they don't reflect as a bogey on their scorecard, showed that they weren't like, anybody could have come and taken this round. Nobody did, except Gannon, who really had that middle stretch where he charged into the lead and then did just enough to hang on.
And it's crazy to think about. Gannon even said it himself. He's like, after I started slow, I thought I was cooked. He goes par to open up the round, and other guys are getting birdies, and he's, multiple shots back at that point. But then at hole 8, he birdies 7 of the next 8, and he takes the lead, and then, puts the pressure on other guys to have to make critical shots. And once again, Luke Humphreys, who at Waco had an opportunity to go head-to-head with Gannon Buhr and get the win, couldn't execute the shot on 18 at Waco, couldn't execute the key shots on 17, and obviously it was kind of a brutal disaster. But the thing is, he had to make a choice about whether he was going to go for it on that approach shot into the green. A very difficult shot to execute because of how fast that green is with OB, right behind. But laying up is potentially just conceding the tournament. So he goes for it, and you got to respect that he goes for it, but he completely shanked it. It was one of the worst shots of the round. Just complete flip over, gone, directly OB, and then he goes OB a couple more times. He ends up costing himself probably $5,000 of payout money on hole 17. But I respect the guy for going for it. Like, you got a chance to win. Winning is so much bigger than just the money that you get from winning. And so he went for it. And it was going to be a really tough to execute shot anyway, but you got to make a better mistake there. You got to go something more stable and be like, look, I'm going to try to just jam it into the front of the green, and hopefully it sticks. And if it doesn't and it skips out the back, at least I have a putt to save. What would that be?
It would be bogey because of his OB drive, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, one mistake after another, but you had no choice. And ultimately, Gannon was able to play safe on one of the hardest holes in the course. And then he was able to play safe again on 18. Although, obviously his drive goes bad into the bush. And he finds a way, right? He finds a way to punch out and give himself a short putt. And that means that he forces Ezra Robinson, who was the only person in contact at that point, to have to hit like a 60-footer. And Ezra Robinson didn't come close. And, that's the difference, right? It's like Gannon, when he had the critical shot to make, the uphill monster putt on 15 through obstructions, he jammed it.
Yep.
And that's why we call this guy the Iceman. Right? Like, he is not afraid of those spots, and these other guys are just not able to execute those super, super critical shots. And that's why Gannon is, however many tournaments he's won at this point on the Pro Tour.
I think the point that to me stands out the most of this tournament is hole 17 for Gannon. Gannon is, I think, rightly criticized at times for being young and emotional, and sometimes makes decisions that aren't just necessarily the best in terms of like golf decisions at times. And the thing is like, it wasn't like the tournament wasn't wrapped. It wasn't him and Luke Humphreys 8 strokes ahead of the next player. So once Luke screwed up, then Gannon gets to coast. As you mentioned, Ezra Robinson had a putt in order to force a playoff on hole 18. Gannon is still very much having to take into consideration the fact that there are 2 players within a stroke of him. And yet he recognizes that hole 17 is not the place to die. And it's not the hill to die on, right? That parking lot mound is not the hill that you want to die on. And he recognizes that and plays it smart, despite the fact that there are players within a stroke of him who are obviously ones who may be able to push and force the playoff. He makes them execute the shot, though. They aren't able to do so. And he's able just to tap it in, able to take his win. Really spectacular performance from Gannon.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's easy to get caught up in looking at the last couple holes when you want to talk about execution and winning a tournament, but it's not always how it goes. Gannon won that tournament by birdieing 7 out of 8 and jamming a monster putt on hole 15. What did they clock that at? Let's see. I'm checking the distance that they marked him up for. 59 footer, which doesn't account for the fact that it was like 10 or 15 feet uphill. And he had to deal with branches and a low ceiling. I mean, it was just an incredible putt. I mean, like, one of the putts of the year for me.
Oh, definitely.
I feel like it actually didn't get enough hype on the broadcast. Like, we should have watched it back, like, more, because it was such a crucial shot.
Yes.
Was that when he took the outright lead? I think it was, because that was his last birdie.
Yeah, I believe so.
And Ezra took par. I mean, that hole was impossible.
Yeah.
Nobody was birdieing that hole.
It's one of 4 birdies on the day. Nico, Austin Turner, Andrew Presnell are the other ones who were able to birdie it. So.
Nico had an 18-foot putt. That's awesome.
That's really impressive.
Austin Turner had a C1 putt, and then Perez hit from 52 feet, and Gannon hit from 59 feet. And those are your birdies. And that's just Iceman.
Yeah, it was clutch. It was so clutch.
I want to address something else just because it came to mind.
Okay.
By the way, we did almost an hour on Beaver State Fling in our
it was
rapid
a good hour
reacts
too.
for subscribers. Great hour.
Yeah.
Highly encourage you to get a subscription. It's less than $4 a month. You get in the Discord, the best place to sit and talk disc golf while it's happening. We got the live disc golf channel. It's popping every single weekend. And then we do the rapid react shows. So we've already done a full podcast about Beaver State Fling. But one thing at the end, there was Philo brought up as Gannon was trying to find his spot, out of the bush on 18, that he could get time violationed and lose a stroke. And I thought it was interesting because I feel like we've seen the pendulum swing from absolutely zero enforcement of any time rules ever to now we have broadcasters talking about a time violation on like a really tricky lie at literally the most critical moment in the round or end of the tournament, arguably.
Right.
And if he executes the shot, he probably wins, or his win probability if he gets out of the bush onto the green goes from like 60% to like 95%.
To whatever right? Ezra Robinson's putting stat is from that distance. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Right? Like, what's the odds that he's going to hit that putt? So it's like this crucial shot. And we just heard Nate Perkins tell us that it was going to be like, there's almost nothing.
Yeah. Nate said he climbed in himself.
Nate said he should throw out around the outside and give himself a C2 look. And so it's like this really critical decision And instead we're talking about the time as if someone is going to call him on time in that spot. I feel like that we've gone too far. I can't believe I'm saying it, Josh. I'm all for time enforcement, but I am not for asking players to keep it to 30 seconds on like the biggest shot of the round when they're having to find their lie in a shrub.
Yep.
Okay? If one of his competitors clocked him there and then they got seconded and he gets stroked, that would be psychotic.
It's a warning first, isn't it?
Well, right.
But assuming, but
I guess I don't know whether he'd been warned earlier in the round. I know that he'd taken his time out, but I guess my point is just that you can't. I don't want to overly fixate on making sure people are keeping it to 30 seconds when they need to make a really important putt, like from the fairway, right? On the tee, sure. On the putting green, sure. Even with a standard approach shot from the fairway, like I want to keep it moving. I'm all for that. Everybody understands that. We harp on it on this podcast, but I just feel like we shouldn't be talking about time in that spot. And we really should be focusing on like, can he execute this really difficult shot? And he had to hit a tiny window, and he did.
Yes.
And he won the tournament.
Yes. Here's the problem with that, and I think you're spot on. The issue is that in most circumstances, and I don't know, it's hard to write that into a PDGA rule. In most circumstances, excessive time results in a poorer quality product in terms of viewership, right? Pace of play being decreased means that watching or those who are playing and are behind you are suffering from that, right?
Backups.
Yes.
Watching people stand over a putt for 60 seconds.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Totally.
That decreases the quality of my experience as a viewer on DGN. That 60 seconds that Gannon used in order to establish his lie had been done correctly by the broadcast, would not have ruined my viewership experience. And in fact, I think it should have heightened it. You could easily see a discussion of Gannon's trying to establish his lie. We know that Nate Perkins said he should go around a tree, and it is clear that he can't see anything. Let's run through the scenarios. Number 1, he punches out, lands next to the basket. All the pressure's on Ezra. Number 2, he punches too far and has a circle 2 putt, and then it becomes a putting face-off between Ezra and Gannon with a big question of who gets to go first. Number 3, Gannon hits a tree branch and is stuck still in this garbage, and Ezra doesn't even have to make the putt in order to force the pressure on Gannon. Gannon now has to try not to bogey.
Thank you. Thank you.
You build that hype. Like
exactly.
That 60 seconds is like a built, like, what more could you ask for as a commentator? Like, it is coming down to the last 2 shots of this tournament.
Right.
And you have a built-in 60 seconds to build the narrative about why this is so exciting.
And like what the decision process is.
Yes.
Here.
Why it feels like everyone is on pins and needles. And instead they're like, man, Gannon should be time violated.
He might get stroked.
Yeah.
He might get stroked.
And then it'd be over.
I think you're right. I don't think he'd been time warninged already, which means that it isn't a stroke. It's just a warning. But like, again, no one's calling it there. No. And like, I think we need to understand contextually in the round that there's going to be times where people go over 30 seconds and it's totally fine.
Yes.
Like, just imagine Ezra like trying to snipe with a call there. You know, that's worse than whenever somebody got called the football a couple weeks ago.
The football on the seat. Yeah.
Yeah. That wasn't consequential.
Yeah.
Crazy. Anyway, Gannon is the best player in the world right now.
Yes.
He is the number 1 player in the world. I don't think is there a question?
Shouldn't be.
I don't think you can tell me that somebody like he's winning more than Calvin over seasons.
Yeah.
He's got a major. AB has fallen off the map the last few weeks. You know, Paul and Ricky are still good, but they're not what they were. I don't even know where else you look. It's either Calvin or Gannon. And Gannon has been strictly better this year.
Well, I mean, Gannon's already surpassed Calvin's win record or win numbers from last season.
From 2 seasons in a row.
Yeah, from 2 seasons in a row now, Gannon has more wins. I mean, we'll see if Calvin is able to get more wins and surpass Gannon, but it's Gannon wins, and he does have cold performances. I think that's a discussion that we've had before about him, is that he will finish 50th. I don't know if he's had a real stinker of a performance. 13th at OTB this weekend, but it's
by the way,
this weekend, but this year.
Just to hit some stats here. Of course, Gannon goes back to back,
right?
So he sweeps Oregon. Gave a little "I love you, Portland" to wrap it up.
No kidding.
Respect that. It's his 7th Elite Series win or major of his career. He is now past his idol Will Schusterich and is tied with Steve Rico for 11th all time in MPO. Notably, Josh, you mentioned that he went bogey free in the final round. He went bogey free on the tournament.
That's impressive.
You know what's interesting? 3 times the winner has gone bogey free at a major, elite, or silver in the last 3 seasons. This is a Statmando gem right here.
The winner has gone bogey free. Okay.
Bogey free.
So they went bogey free and they won.
Silver.
Okay.
They went bogey free and they won.
Okay.
In the last 3 years. Okay. So 2024, 2023, 2022. Those 3 players, Gannon Buhr, Eagle McMahon, Garrett Gerthy, and they all did it at Beaver State Fling.
Wow. Okay. So
that is very interesting to me.
Beaver State.
Do you think that says something about Milo McIver?
Yeah. I mean, I think it probably does.
It's got to.
Yeah. It says that it isn't terribly punishing. Think like a la Champions Cup at down at the IDGC, like just rough that doesn't really turn into bogeys all that frequently. However, what I really love about this course, if you look at, I'm going to use Ricky and Gavin Rathbun as my example here. So neither of them birdie hole 1 or 2. Ricky gets 3, but Gavin does not. Both get 4. Gavin gets 5, but Ricky does not. Ricky gets 7, 8, 9. Gavin gets 10, 11, 12, 13. Ricky gets 14. They both get 16. And then Gavin gets 18, right? Like what that says is all 18 holes, except hole 15, really. Hole 15 does need some rework. That there are not enough birdies on that hole. But every other hole on this course is birdieable. And so it's just a question of like where you get your birdies. And that makes for a good course. Makes for a good course. So I really like Milo. I don't think that's a big knock. Charlie, I want to add to your statistic actually. So Gannon gets his bogey-free tournament. There are an MPO players that have had multiple bogey-free major or elite tournaments in the past 4 years. Okay, so this does not require a winner. Ricky Wysocki. That is your list. Ricky goes bogey-free, tied second at Beaver State Fling, and was bogey-free at 2021 Played Against Sports Jonesboro Open when he won by 4 strokes. He's the only player the past 4 years to go have multiple bogey-free at an elite series or a major. Gannon Buhr obviously did it here at Beaver State Fling. Mason Ford did it at Texas State's in this year as well. And then James Conrad did it in 21 at the Preserve. Eagle and Garrett are not included on this list because Beaver State Fling was not a major at that time.
Can you imagine playing a course as challenging as the ones that are on the tour and not bogeying over 3 rounds?
Oh.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, shout out to Rick. Like, I got another Rick stat for you.
Okay.
He's now got a 24 tournament streak of finishing inside the top 20 at majors or elites.
Gosh.
The second, he's number 1 on the list. The second longest streak is Gannon at 12. And then you have Chris Dickerson and Ezra Robinson at 6. Like, Ricky is really good. We were talking on the pod. Somebody wanted odds on the Rapid Reacts. Somebody wanted odds on Paul and Ricky not winning a tournament this year. And I will leave the odds for the Rapid React show. But what I will say is that Ricky is continuing to put himself in a position to win. And it's been a little frustrating watching him, I think, because you feel like he's got all the pieces and the tools, and then he's just like doesn't execute on a few holes that seems to hold him back.
Yeah. Which is so strange because 2 years ago, Ricky won 5 times. Like, it feels like he's playing at a similar level, except in the the most clutch moments where he's like in final rounds where he's just slipping a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple Circle 1 misses in the final round, and maybe that's the difference, you know?
Lost by a stroke.
Gannon goes 11 for 11 from Circle 1.
There you go. There's the difference. You're absolutely right.
And that's the 2 strokes that could have given it to Rick.
Yeah.
You know, he does miss a bunny once in a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does. Should we give some credit to Holyn?
Let's talk about Holyn. Holy smokes.
Talk about ice in the veins.
Oh, my gosh. After many tournaments where she's been in a position to win and she's had a stinker final round or anti-clutch her way out of a win at a tournament where she was clearly the best player, she did the opposite this time, which is that she was struggling and then she found a way back into the round, took advantage of a mistake from Owen Scoggins, and jammed 2 absolutely clutch putts on holes 17 and 18, with the one on 18 just a masterpiece putt. I mean, you know, talking about Gannon on 15, Holyn on 18 was something special. Mm-hmm. I mean, 45-footer, elevated basket, you know, the kind of putt that you just don't even really see made that much in FPO, to be honest. And she jammed it. And double fist pump, come on, the whole thing, goes to the playoff, and now is 2-0 in playoffs in her elite touring career after she beat Kristen at Throw Pink, and now she's beaten Owen. So she's beaten the top 2 rated players in the world in playoffs and is 2-0. And we've been killing Holyn for not being clutch and for playing bad in the final rounds and shrinking in these spots. And it just feels like maybe this is the thing. Because I'm telling you, we've talked about Holyn and Ella together as kind of like this pair. I'm done with that. Holyn's playing at another level. Holyn is like could win worlds this year level.
You are right. She could. And man, oh man, when she sandwiches, so a hole 4 all the way to hole 14, she plays 2 over. And you're like, gosh, here it is again.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Here it is again.
It was brutal. She literally didn't birdie from holes 4 to 14.
Yes. Stuck 2 bogeys in there, and that was it. And you're like, man, like, Holyn, why again? And you're like, Owen is just gonna walk in, take this, and be done. And then after that bogey on 14, locks in, gets 4 straight, big putt on 17, big putt on 18.
I mean, even big putt on 16.
Yeah,
it was a 30-footer.
I think at that point you didn't recognize the importance of that putt, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Whereas when Owen had the bogey on 17,
it's opened the door.
It opens the door because now it's a 2-stroke swing. Yeah. And then Owen parked underneath basket on 18.
I mean, if we're being honest, Owen blew this tournament.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
Like Holyn took it at the end.
Yep.
But if Owen doesn't triple the 4th, then she wins easily.
Or stays in bounds on 17.
Right.
Like
a couple of just like really critical mistakes, and I thought like some questionable shot choices on a couple of those spots trying to scramble, and you know, of course, hindsight's 20/20.
Sure.
But she probably should have won.
Probably.
I mean, she had 9 birdies to Holyn's 6.
You know what the problem was, Charlie? She wasn't wearing her own sunglasses. The interview on hole 1, if you didn't watch the live commentary, she said that she was foraging for mushrooms the day before and lost her sunglasses. And like on the walk from hole 1 to hole 2, a spotter or some DGPT staff runs over and gives Owen her sunglasses so that she can wear those sunglasses for the round. And but that's it. That was it, Charlie. She didn't have the sunglasses.
I was wondering if she was hunting for morel mushrooms, but I think morel season is over by May, so probably not.
I am not a mushroom forager. That doesn't mean anything to me.
morals are like these like super, like they're only available for like a month. But I think Oregon's a pretty good place to go looking for them. They're very, very tasty, but they're super rare and hard to get, and you can't really like grow them well, I think, like in a lab. So mushroom foraging is surprisingly fun.
I've heard a lot of people who do it. I've never have personally, but I'll have to give it a try, I guess. They're
kind of crazy though. I went on a mushroom foraging little like guided tour.
Okay.
In upstate New York, and the guy was talking about like you're using sight and scent and like thinking about how spongy it is and kind of all the ways that you ID these mushrooms.
Sure.
And obviously you have to be very careful. And one of the things that they like, it's like you can take a bite and chew it as long as you spit it out. But if you swallow it, you might die. But if you chew it and you spit it out, you'll be okay. I'm like, I'm good. I don't really like. What if I accidentally swallow a little bit? Like if I'm brushing my teeth and I eat some toothpaste on accident, I don't want to die.
Cough or something when accidentally inhale some.
Somebody scares you and you're like, oh, you swallow some. But it is cool. It's fun.
Yeah, I'll stick to my other senses when I go mushroom foraging.
I mean, I don't think I'm going to become a mushroom guy, but I'm going to Amsterdam tomorrow. So, apropos of nothing.
Are those ones that you test by taste as well, Charlie?
I don't know what you're talking about. So, I mean, look, to me, this is probably I would say this is the biggest moment of Holyn's career so far. Not because she won an Elite Series and that like somehow checks the box, which it does technically, right? Throw Pink is not technically an Elite Series or a major, but I still think that's a bigger win than this one. However, I think the way in which she won this tournament, especially after the season she's been having so far, this could have a lasting impact on like her mentality.
Yeah.
And focus moving forward.
Yep, I completely agree with that. Noteworthy, DGPT standings have quite the update. Holyn is now your leader in the DGPT standings. She is in first. Now, listen, Evelina is playing Turku Open this weekend.
She will retake.
She will retake. She needs 6 points. So as long as Evelina, doesn't DNF, she basically has Holyn back. But Holyn's DGPT rank by season, this I think great, very very, it tells a great story. 2024, she's currently in first. 2023, she finished in fourth. 2022 was 13th. 2021, 42nd. It is a just meteoric rise by Holyn Handley from a player, and we say this often, but I think deserves the credit again, who comes from a world of competitive athletics. And, we give Gannon a lot of credit for his technicality about, disc golf and his understanding of the way that disc golf works. But Holyn may be the player who understands more about disc golf mechanics and like form than any other player in any division. Her breakdowns on YouTube, I think, are excellent.
There's a case to be made.
Yes. She just has a very clear understanding of the mechanics required to succeed in disc golf. And she very clearly is just improving her shot making. And as long as she continues to get this mental game under control, we're seeing a historic player.
Josh, I want to do something new.
Okay.
And I want to remember to do this in the future.
Okay.
It's called shout outs.
Okay.
Where we just shout out players. We don't have to go on and on about it.
Okay.
Who did something notable or otherwise interesting this weekend.
Love this idea. This is great.
Okay.
Okay.
So shout out number 1, Emily Weatherman, 8th place finish. I'm just so impressed. She's gone. She was the 9th best player on the West Coast Swing. We're going to look more at West Coast Swing stats after the break. But to me, that's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a shout out. Who do you want to shout out? I got a couple more, but we'll alternate.
Yeah. Okay. I was not prepared. I didn't know I was going.
I literally just threw this at you on the spot.
Shout out Eagle McMahon, who shoots a 9 down.
Absolutely.
In round 3, and moves into the top 12, gets 12th place. Great recovery. I mean, he's really bouncing back, and it's great to see.
Yeah, he's starting to look like he's ready to be back, like back. Shout out to Sophia Donachie, who did cash this weekend. It wasn't a podium, nothing close, but another cash. You got to feel pretty good about that.
Yeah. Shout out Nate Doss, who shoots
shout out Nate Doss.
1,000 rated tournament.
Let's go.
Had a round that you really thought he might make cash, but didn't make cash. But for the first, this is the first tournament in 6 years, and he shoots 1,000 rated tournament. So shout out to Nate Doss.
We didn't give him that much time on the air. I know he missed the big putt, but shout out Ezra Robinson. The guy's killing it. And he is a top 5 guy right now on tour, I think. And his time will come. I think he's going to win one this year. I love his style, just like super aggressive, goes for everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shout out Own, the dog, I know she didn't pull it out this time, but man, she's still so good. And
she's a beast, dude.
It's one of those things. I think that it is a skill to win tournaments that at times you're not expected to, but you really don't see Own very often lose tournaments that she really shouldn't. This is a weaker field. The Europeans are not here. Own should be near the top of this event. She's at the top of the event. That is something that is important that Own consistently does. Shout out to Own.
I think it was Luke Humphreys. He hit like a big circle 2 tricky putt, and he goes, "I feel like Owen Scoggins." I love that. Right, that's she is that good.
She is that good.
We've got MPO players being like, "Yeah, I feel like Owen right now." Let's see. I had another couple shout outs. Shout out Chandler Fry, who went crazy and shot a 10 down in the final round and finished 12th, moving up 31 spots on the leaderboard with that.
Nice payday
Crazy.
For that.
He had a double bogey on his round. So he had 12 birdies.
It's impressive.
Scorcher.
Round. Impressive.
Scorcher.
Round. Yeah. Charlie, my shout outs I'm going to save. I've got some West Coast swing stuff that I want to talk, that I'll have to save some shout outs here.
We'll get to that after the break.
Yep.
We're going to break down West Coast swing stats for the entire OTB Portland BSF trio. And we're also going to Pursewatch, which we didn't do Portland Open because I forgot. So we will do it today. We'll check in on the Pursewatch, and got a couple other things for you as well. So stay with us. It's the Upshot.
At Pound, the quality of our gear runs deeper than the stitching. That's why we make everything right here in the U.S., employing highly skilled, well-paid professionals. From bomb-proof Cordura fabric to YKK zippers and recycled plastics, we source the highest quality U.S. materials to make the most comfortable, durable pack in disc golf. Our lifetime warranty stays with the pack, not the purchaser. So regardless of how you find us, we will be here to make sure your pack stays on the course and out of the landfill. Pound's integrity is held together with more than just thread.
Welcome back to the Upshot. Time to take a look at some West Coast swing stats. So, Josh, you pulled all the stats for players' performances over the last 3 tournaments, where they just stand in the overall Pro Tour standings, and how they finished relatively on the West Coast swing. So I'll let you kind of take us through what you found to be the most interesting stats here.
Yeah, so there's an important caveat that needs to be stuck in here. On the MPO side, you have a couple Europeans who weren't here, but primarily you just had guys who don't play the West Coast swing. Chris Dickerson, Matteo, Simon Lizotte, Joel Freeman, right? These are guys who are in the top 32 who did not play at all on the West Coast Swing. A couple players who missed a tournament. FPO side, you have all the Europeans who are gone.
Yep.
That drastically changes things. What that means is that players should play better on like their relative West Coast Swing ranking than their DGPT actual standings.
Yeah, because you have a bunch of people in front of you who aren't playing.
Correct.
And you're able to get points and
they are not.
Pass them.
Correct.
Right.
So that is what should happen. There are a couple players who I think rose to expectations, maybe exceeded expectations, right? Besides just playing a couple spots better, or played better, So there are a couple who exceeded expectations. Let's hit a few of those. Ezra Robinson was your fourth best player on the West Coast Swing. He is sixth in the DGPT standings right now. And so that's the other thing is like these are taking into account West Coast Swing points, the DGPT standings. So
Sure.
the gap may have been bigger. Like Ezra may have been 8 before the West Coast Swing, for example.
Right.
Right.
We're not going to go back and figure those.
Sorry, I'm not
numbers
doing
out. There's a lot of analytics things that with better tools we could do more.
Yes.
But yeah.
So let's actually start your podium. Gannon Buhr, Calvin Heiberg, Ricky Wysocki. 265, 241, 232 in DGPT points. They're the only three that eclipsed 200 points. This order went Gannon, Calvin, Ricky. Pro Tour standings are Gannon, Ricky, Calvin. Not a huge, those guys played to the level that we would expect them to. This is where we get interesting, though. Your fourth and fifth place players, Ezra Robinson, as I mentioned, played above. The next guy, though, and this is something this was one that I was really excited to see. Gavin Babcock was the fifth best player over the course of the West Coast Swing. And he's sitting 18th in the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings right now.
How about that?
He played really, really well over the West Coast Swing. So big shout out to Gavin Babcock here. Other two guys who kind of outperformed, Cole Redolin was 9th, sitting in 15th on the DGPT standings. And Casey White.
Obviously, it helps a lot to have a really good tournament
Correct.
where you finish top 3.
Yes.
Because Cole got 106 points at Portland, which was a plus event, so you could get even more.
Yep.
And then he was pretty bad at the other two.
And
he got a total of 26 points.
That's a great point.
But it's still in aggregate, yes.
Yes. Ezra, Gavin, and Casey White. Casey White, 13th best player on the West Coast Swing, 22nd in Pro Tour standings. All three of those guys didn't have I guess Ezra this last weekend had a 80-point tournament. But other than that, the next highest single tournament points was Gavin Babcock, 66 at OTB Open. So they really played well over the collective of this swing.
Yeah. And I got it on the reverse side.
Yes.
I think we got to talk about Anthony Barella.
Oh man.
Which, not that you need to see the numbers really to understand this, but he was one of the worst West Coast Swing players.
He was the third worst West Coast Swing player who played all three. Uh-huh.
Yeah. The only players who did worse than him, who played all 3 tournaments in terms of total points, were Adam Hammes and Jesse Nieminen. AB, currently 5th in the Pro Tour standings. He was 23rd overall, where he earned 32 points at OTB, 7.5 at Portland Open, and just 1 at Beaver State Fling, which I believe you always earn at least 1.
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
So just by showing up, you get a point. So he got minimum points. It's been a really rough stretch for him.
It has. Yeah, it really has been. For reference, Benjamin Callaway was 19th on the Pro Tour, on the West Coast Swing. He only played one event. He got 56 points and beat Anthony Barella.
Yep.
Who's the other player who had?
Well, I think you could look at Nicholas, another guy up in the top 5 on the overall standings. It wasn't awful. He finished 8th on the West Coast Swing.
But given the guys who are gone, I think that those 4 standings.
Sure. He got outplayed by Ezra Robinson, Gavin Babcock, Gavin Rathbun, Isaac Robinson. I don't think those are it's not like some kind of, it's not like AB.
No.
But it is relative to where he is in the standings. And I have to say, I'm a little surprised. I especially thought he would do a little better at Beaver State Fling.
I know, me too. Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't know. I think you look at somebody like Joey Buckets kind of slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
21st on the West Coast Swings, 12th in the overall standings. I otherwise, it's mostly what you might expect.
Yeah.
Bradley Williams played pretty good, picking up a solid 30 plus at each tournament. He finished 15th on the West Coast Swing. He's 32nd in the standings, right at that bubble spot.
That probably pulled him into the bubble. Then.
Pro Tour, I'm sure it did.
Yeah,
I'm sure
very
it did.
Nice.
Yeah.
FPO again, missing all the European players who are the top players. Couple notable ones. Cat Merch, 3rd on the West Coast Swing, 9th in DGPT standings. The players who are ahead of her are a handful of Europeans.
Really good back-to-back performances at OTB and Portland for Cat.
She played up to the level that we expect. I mean, I think Cat's probably been playing pretty close to her level anyway. There's just players who are better than her, and there are more of them in the field right now.
Mm-hmm.
Paige Pierce obviously gets the win.
I think Paige could have been anywhere from like 2 to 4.
Yes,
had she played Beaver State Fling, because of course she won Portland, so that's going to help a lot.
And then Emily Weatherman, 9th on the West Coast Swing and 20th on the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings. So
40 plus points at 3 straight events.
That's a solid performance.
She is awesome.
Yeah. So that's
clearly, I think they said this on the broadcast, but like clearly going to be Rookie of the Year at this point.
Yes.
Like unless Ellie Ezra really gets it going.
Yeah.
I think it's almost a done deal at this point.
It feels unlikely that that's going to happen, but
notable in the sort of the wrong direction, I might point out Valerie Mondahano. Now she didn't play OTB, so you got to have that as a grain of salt.
Sure.
And in fact, maybe she's not a good example specifically because she didn't play OTB. If she picks up another, let's say 40 points there, so, that puts her in like more like the right around where she would be in the overall standings, which was 11th.
But the problem with that is there are 4 Europeans above her or 3 Europeans above her in the actual overall standings who weren't there, which means by that logic, Valerie should have been playing closer to like the 7 to 8 mark. And even if you like extrapolate her results from Oregon to OTB, she's still finishing closer to 13th, which is an underperformance by 4 spots.
Missy 5th on the West Coast Swing, 3rd in the standings. I think Missy getting outplayed by Ella and Kat, for instance, is definitely a little bit of a surprise. I mean, it's not like this is way off the mark, but especially at OTB, I feel like could have done better.
Yeah. Ella's the other player, so she technically played better than her DGPT standing. She was 4th on the West Coast Swing, 6th in the DGPT standing, but there were 2 players above her in the DGPT standings that were gone, and so she performed exactly like she's performed all season.
Feels a little nitpicky when she did win a tournament.
You're right.
For the first time.
You're right. Here's I think that these set of courses are just like so tailored to Ella. Portland, even Beaver State in previous years, it's like the furthest throwers have succeeded. Remember, like it was Jen Allen last year, right? Like
it's true.
Throwing far at these courses is a big advantage. And like there is no reason that this West Coast Swing shouldn't have been Holyn Ella, given that Ella won one of them.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. A little nitpicky. You are right.
It's maybe a lot nitpicky. I feel like if you get your first win of your career on tour during a swing of the tour, that's a good swing.
It's a good swing.
You had a good swing.
You're right.
I get that you want to see more consistency.
I do.
But I think we can wait to talk about that more than 2 weeks after she just won her first ever tournament.
Charlie, if she had finished like 2 places higher at either of the events, she jumps up probably ahead of Own. She only needed 20 points.
That's a good point. That is a good point.
Right? And Own didn't have a win. And so like Own just outplayed her at at the other 2 events. Anyway, but you're right. I'm sorry. It's too nitpicky. I'm very happy that Ella got her win.
Anniken Sten, 8th on the swing, 16th on tour. Now, to an extent, Anniken has not played as much, so naturally her DGPT standing is going to be lower. But I thought it was a good stretch for her.
It was a good stretch for her.
not amazing, but solid.
Again, plus 40, above 40 points on
Yeah.
all of them. So, yeah. Anyway, that was I'd be interested in doing this exercise more often based on some of our geographic swings.
It is nice to kind of take a step back sometimes and
Yeah.
not just focus on what happened at the tournament itself.
Yeah.
Speaking of what did happen in the tournament itself, Gannon and Holyn won, which means I'm now 3-4-3 on picking winners in the last 3 tournaments. Josh, I am clearly the king of the West Coast swing. I have outplayed all of the players. I have dominated you. I've dominated the subscribers. I probably have an insurmountable lead at this point. I haven't checked.
I'm about to go look. We're gonna go look. Let's see, leaderboard here. You are ahead of Chirpin by 1 point.
I'm number 1 in the
You
standings
are number
now?
1 in the standings now.
Let's go.
You've got me by
discgolf.ultiworld.com/upshot-picks. You can check it out.
You've got me by 19 points.
Wow.
Yeah. I've got some work to do. I need a perfect podium is what I need. I need that bonus.
Let's see. Interesting. You know what's nice? There's been some updates to this that even I haven't noticed yet. You can see how many the most popular picks.
Yeah, this
Because
is
if you're a subscriber, you can log in and you can make your picks every week.
Mm-hmm.
Go head to head against me and Josh. Holyn was the most popular pick. Gannon was the most popular pick this week. Ella was the most popular at Portland. Calvin, and then OTB. A lot of people had Own at OTB and Calvin. So, yeah, I mean, people are smart. People are smart.
yeah.
I can't believe I'm number 1 though. That's awesome.
You're number 1. Yeah.
I do feel like I deserve it. After going 3 for 3.
You do just
Can I keep it going?
I guess we'll see.
I guess we'll see.
I'm-
Turku Open coming up.
Yeah, I'm pulling points from Europe here. That's the goal.
That's not going to happen because I know what's going to happen, and I will continue to make perfect picks for the rest of the season.
Careful. The bigger they get, the harder they fall, Charlie.
Hey, by the way, Josh, the West Coast swing is over, which means
Oh yes.
Jamie Thomas is going to come back on the show with us, and we're going to make our waiver wire picks in our fantasy draft from earlier this season. I think we're going to do that next week. So start doing your research on what you're going to do. I mean, I know what you're going to do.
I know what I'm going to do.
You're going to drop Katrina Allen, which was a terrible pick.
Okay, all right.
Terrible
All right,
pick.
hold up. We didn't know she was pregnant. Like,
Okay,
come on.
Is that true? Is
yes,
that true?
it is. Because I remember she made that. Okay, Charlie, come on. Do you really think I would have
makes
picked
sense.
her if she had announced that she was
No,
pregnant and not
probably
playing
not.
half the season?
When did she announce that?
Like 2
When
weeks
did she
after our
announce
draft.
That's brutal. No, you know what? You're right. You're right. I'm being unfair. I didn't realize.
Yes, that happened after. Yeah, I have to.
You tried to buy low and take Katrina.
I did, and I even when I picked Katrina, I said if she doesn't turn it around, this is my waiver wire right here. I will get rid of Katrina and I'll pick up an FPO player who is not performing.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna update our fantasy draft tab in the Upshot picks standings after we do our waiver wire stuff. So we'll get that all up to speed because we got to figure out who's picking first. I don't actually know.
I don't either. We gotta go check.
We haven't done the date. We haven't done the results yet, but it's going to be a couple interesting. Like obviously, it's a huge advantage to go first. I think it was total wins.
It's total wins, yeah. Because remember, total wins aren't used in the actual final performance.
Right.
It's used to determine who gets to go first in the waiver wire.
Exciting.
Man, I can't believe
Exciting.
Jamie got Evelina in the 7th round.
Oh my gosh, some of my picks are so brutal. My MPO picks are fire, but I'm not super happy about. Like I have Allie Smith. It's just that was not great. And I took Hannah. Like I don't know. I have Paige, which I maybe went a little early, but I don't feel bad about it.
That was
I
Charlie.
feel-
You want to know? Allie Smith is actually not your worst performing FPO pick right now.
Is it Henna?
It is Haley King.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Allie Smith is 6 standing spots ahead of Haley King.
Are you serious? Is that just because Haley's not playing enough?
Yes, it is.
Haley, can we please just pick it up out there? Like, I'm not gonna drop Haley. She was my number one FPO pick.
I didn't realize that.
I mean, she's kind of been bad. Like,
Let's save this.
3 finishes outside the top 30.
Yeah, she has been bad. Let's save this. I want to talk with Jamie as well. I could talk about this all day, but I want to save it for Jamie.
All right, we'll save it.
We have a couple things that we got to wrap up over
That's
here.
That's literally shocking to me that you just told me that.
And you come over here. Yeah, Josh with the Katrina Allen pick. Goodness sakes. Get out of here, Charlie. I think Katrina Allen's ahead of Haley.
Round. To be fair, I mean, I guess I could picking Evelina, right? Like, it looks great in hindsight, but I think coming in, there's a reason she went in the 7th round.
Yes. Oh,
but
definitely.
Kristen, Owen, Missy, Holyn were all off the board.
Yeah.
When I got to my Haley King pick, I took Haley and Paige back to back, and I ended up with Ella too. I don't know. I feel okay about it, but it's going to be interesting stuff.
Katrina Allen is 1 spot ahead of Haley. Thank you very much.
Oh my god. I'm in shambles right now.
Get off my back.
That's horrible.
I made the bad
Are you...
pick.
Dude, that's crazy. Okay, it will resolve by the end of the season. Haley will play enough tournaments, we hope.
And not finish outside the top 30th?
Oh, God.
You've got a decision to make, Charlie.
I do.
All right, Pursewatch.
Pursewatch, let's go. Well, let's do Portland first because we didn't get to it last week. So Portland Open.
Man, I'm not on the show and you forget to do the basic stuff, Charlie.
I don't even know what I was. I'm going to be honest. I had to do that preview show in like 15 minutes. I had no time. So 72,496 for MPO, 35,798 for FPO. Total purse 108,294. That is the largest purse so far on the Pro Tour this season. 160 players. $677 a player. That's also the high water mark for money per player. $13K to the MPO winner, Gannon Buhr. $8K to the FPO winner, Paige Pierce. For a total purse, I already said 108,294.
Yep.
That is down 5%, almost 6% from last year.
That's the interesting part.
What do you make of that?
Portland,
this is a Pro Tour owned and operated event.
It is. Portland, listen, it still is the high watermark for this season. It was ahead of other tournaments like last year and was kind of above where it probably was like reasonable based on its size. But it is a contraction. And like the DGPT probably could have found 10K somewhere or you know, from themselves if they felt like that was worth it. Or like they had the money to do so. So,
I think it's a reflection of reality. I think it's a I mean, we have heard, like, the Seans were on here saying flat would be good.
Yeah,
and I've heard some buzz from around the industry that manufacturers are hurting. Well, like.
Don't charge $35 a disc.
Yeah, and it turns out that like the boom of COVID was not going to be sustainable.
Yeah.
And so sales are down across the board. Everyone's down. Some worse than others. But this is reality.
Yeah.
Down 5%.
They also
like the Pro Tour's whole thing is to try to like paper over this kind of stuff at all costs. Mm-hmm. And go up. And I think the fact that you see this down is a sign that, like, things are tough.
Yeah.
It's a little tougher this year.
They also had
maybe a lot
more
tougher
players this year than last year.
Oh, interesting.
So
right.
It's even perhaps more exacerbated.
Yeah. A minor amount, but,
it's probably
6 or 7%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beaver State Fling, 83,000 total purse. 10K to the MPO winner, 6,500 to the FPO winner. That's up 90% from last year. Of course, it was a silver a year ago.
It's right on mark with the rest of the elite.
This is right there. I mean, everything's been basically in the 80s except DDO, which was at 75.
Yeah.
They also had fewer players at DDO, but this is like very standard.
Yep, on track.
What we've seen this year.
over last two things, Charlie. We got tournament. I instead of Inside the Circle, I'm just doing tournament watch today because our Inside the Circle are 2 tournaments. Heinola Open was a silver event on the DGPT Europe tour. Silva wins by 8 strokes over Elina and Alsalu, and Jakub Semerad wins in MPO. On the U.S. Amateur Disc Golf Championships, which also happened this weekend at the Toboggan course, Ryan Mon shoots a 6 under 1035 rated final round.
I have to assume he's related to Jake.
You would think so. I would think so. I mean, he looks like him if you go look at the picture.
I'm gonna just Google. Can I find it out from Googling? Keep going, Josh. I'll look at this.
What you should do afterwards is look up pictures of both of them.
It's got to be.
See how? I mean, he's got the hair flare that comes out from underneath the hat.
It's got to be.
It's got to be his brother.
If it's not, there's something crazy going on.
Someone correct us, but we're gonna assume it is. But that should do it, Charlie. I think that's all the housekeeping we got to get to today. So,
very good. All right. Well, it's been a great show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will be back to preview Turku Open. I think we're going to have an interview as well for Thursday, so stay tuned for that. Excited for some more European Elite Series disc golf. Starting to see a couple more Americans heading over that way, and it's only going to ramp up from here. So West Coast Swing is all wrapped up. For Josh Mansfield and Charlie Eisenhood signing off, and we will talk to you Thursday right here on The Upshot.